Hello and welcome to Horseplayers Happy Hour. I'm your host, Peter Thomas Fornatale, your co-host, Peter Thomas Fornatale. So happy to be with you once again here in the Brooklyn Bunker, getting ready to head up to Saratoga Springs in the next couple of days, enjoying my last few afternoons betting racing in the bunker. Horseplayers Happy Hour brought to you by the Breeders' Cup and Horseplayers.com. We are here to talk about racing and to live stream a contest happening on Horseplayers.com. You can get involved for just $20. It is a feeder into a qualifier tomorrow for the $10,000 Breeders' Cup betting challenge. Best of all the money, all the rake, if you will, is going to charity. We are here to benefit the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation and the Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance, and to do it with me. We've got a guy who's been on all of these shows since we started them, with the exception of one, when he had to look for a house. But other than that, all of these shows since the beginning of this crazy period in American history, coming to us from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. He is TV's Matt Bernier. What's up, Matty?
PTF, how we doing? Obviously, JK is going to join us at some point. At least that's the word anyway. But yeah, this is going to be the first time, and it feels like a proper throwback.
Yes.
For you and I feel like, I mean, you want to talk about rewind the clock. We're going back to the three-letter company in the big city.
Oh, yeah.
And, we had a lot of fun with that. But yeah, this is a bit of a throwback for us.
Fall of 2014, early 2015, a lot of chatter about California Chrome and American Pharoah back in the day. American Pharoah, the horse that really put us on the map in terms of our broadcasting. We will get JK in here at some point. First thing I want to do is encourage people who may have just stumbled upon this, whatever. There is still plenty of time to get involved in this contest. If you go over to horseplayers.com and navigate, you see it up there on the screen for producer Craig, Horseplayers Happy Hour, P&P. That means it's a pick and pray. All your picks for this contest have to be in before the contest begins. The official start time, 3:09 in just 6 minutes. But folks, it's Gulfstream. You're going to have a little bit more time than that. You can still, you might be able to handicap all 9 races in the sequence. But even if you just want to support us, that would be great. And, in that case, you play your phone number, you play all the ones, you do something. But you go to horseplayers.com and you get involved. We will talk later, if you don't want to go that far. We will talk later about how you could just donate directly to these two fantastic charities. We'll do a little bit of a telethon aspect to these shows as well that we've been having so much fun doing. But with that out of the way, Matt, one of the things I'm really excited about this weekend is there is a ton of great stakes racing. And we have our now second, since sort of the restart of the absolute major leagues of racing, our second Breeders' Cup win and you're in race. It's happening at Belmont Park. It's the Grade 1 Carter. And it's a really interesting race I wanted to get your thoughts on. I know that these type of races, as a racing analyst, as a racing fan, as a horse player, they really get your blood going.
Well, not only because they're the best horses, you brought it up. I believe it is a win in your Indy ready for the Breeders' Cup down the road, but also the idea that for me, from a gambling standpoint, these horses are just, they're more reliable to run to form as opposed to some of the lower level runners. And I think if you can get creative and make a case for an 8, 10, 15 to 1 shot, I think there's a real scenario where you're going to get a better effort out of those horses in races like this than maybe you would at the lower levels. That's just my opinion. With a race like this, not even factoring in the fact that this is a race that's typically run at Aqueduct a few months earlier than what we've got here this year, I think there's a number of intriguing factors to this. You've got the number 2 performer in here for Shug, who last year, very, very light campaign, but looked brilliant in all of his starts. There's a part of me that wants to see, is he going to end up being a horse that wants to go longer when it's all said and done? He won the Discovery as a 3-year-old going 9 furlongs last November. To me, is this sort of a starting off point, or is he really going to be cranked up and ready to roll going? Horses in here, Firenze Fire, for obvious reasons, I want to see what we get from him. I'm not going to go betting him at a short price in a race like this, but I was most intrigued with Chad Brown's horse, the number 5 Network Effect. I can understand folks that would look at him and say perhaps he's a little bit class compromised compared to some of the other runners in this spot. I thought his run 2 starts back off the long layoff was really, really strong when you consider he clipped heels and nearly fell to his face coming out of the gate. And I thought he rallied against a sort of speed-friendly track down at Gulfstream to finish second by a half length. He came back in that Florida bred race. He was 3-5. On paper, it doesn't look like anything great, but he was bottled up and behind horses. He kind of was in the perfect position until it wasn't, rounding the far turn. Eventually, a little bit of a seam opened up on the rail, and he kicked in a big, big way. And you just, there's a part of me that wonders if this is just sort of a 4-year-old it's taken him a while to put it all together and to get some sort of consistency about racing in the afternoons. We've seen a number of layoff lines throughout his career. So he's the route that I wanted to go. I think he's going to be a decent price in here. And, for the reasons I mentioned with those inside 2 horses, I feel like maybe I want to take a little bit of a shot against them.
I can see it. I can definitely see it at the price. Network Effect has an absolute ton of upside. For me, this is an interesting race. For a grade 1 sprint, there doesn't appear to be all that much speed sign on compared to what you'd think of when there's this much money and prestige on the line. To your point before, Matt, you talked about the grade 1 racing, the best racing, being so appealing because it's an opportunity to get good prices on horses with really good form. It reminds me of the famous and terrific pro punter, Maury Wolf, who I've had the pleasure of interviewing many times. He talks about why the Breeders' Cup betting challenge is, to his mind, the best contest out there, and why the betting at the Breeders' Cup in general is so good. And it's because you get really good paper on horses at big prices. So I definitely see reaching a little bit towards the longer end of the odds spectrum. For me, I keep coming back to Vekoma in this spot. I like the outside draw giving Javier Castellano options, and I just like the blend of speed and stamina that Vekoma has for this test. Just looking at pace figures, I put him in no worse than the second flight coming out of there. Showed last time the ability to run super well at 7 furlongs. And Vekoma's got finish, and you can see that in his body of work. I think he might be in a really nice position turning for home. Will not be as nice of a price as Network Effect, but I do think there could be a little bit of cushion in the odds. I couldn't agree more. I mean, I really like Performer as a racehorse. I have similar questions about Firenze Fire, but I just don't think that that's where the value is going to lie in this race. It's going to be Vekoma for me in the Carter. Had you given any thoughts to specifics of wagering strategy here, Matt?
Well, I mean, if I can get somewhere near that 8-1 morning line on Network Effect, I would take that in a heartbeat. I think he fits in there, and I could make an argument without having priced out the whole field that he should be, in my opinion, somewhere in that 9-2 range. So 8-1 is definitely a fair sort of overlay. You bring up Vekoma, and the interesting thing for me, this is a horse that's only gone 1 turn 3 times in his career. They're all victories. And I think that was what some people had as sort of reservations, myself included, when they went out to the 2 turns with him on that road to the Kentucky Derby. And he didn't run poorly. I mean, look, he won the Bluegrass by open lengths going 2 turns, but all along, I've kind of had that hunch that this is going to be what his bread and butter is, sort of the 7/8, the 1-turn mile, that sort of configuration. And you've got a nice outside draw. I will always enjoy an outside draw. I know you're going to give up a little bit of ground, but you're going to be able to play the break. And this is a horse that is not entirely void of early foot. I don't expect him to be pushing the lead, but he's got the ability to sit 2.5 lengths off of it with Javier aboard and kind of dictate things down on the inside. If somebody wants to go, so be it. If nobody wants to go, you can sit a little bit closer, and you brought up the big piece. He's got finish. That Sir Shackleton, he really kicked on at the end of that race. So I'm with you. He's definitely an intriguing number. I don't know if I'd want him at 7-2. That seems a hair on the light side for me, but I feel like there are a few horses to me that fit in that 9-2 to 6-1 range that I would be content with.
Playing the board is never a terrible idea when you have horses of this class. It's very hard to just pick a winner. Obviously, you want that board to be your friend. Before we leave this race and get on to the first race of our contest here at Gulfstream, just another quick thought on Firenze Fire. Obviously, on his best form, looks tremendous. He's a horse who's proven himself around this course. I know that producer Craig, I think, cashed his first ever pari-mutuel ticket on this horse a couple of years ago, so a little bit of a sentimental favorite for the team. But obviously, with the barn switch, the controversy surrounding the previous trainer, for me, it's just wait and see. How are you approaching him?
No, 100%, and it's nothing against the horse. I think there is ability here, but there's just that part of me, and I think anyone that plays this game for more than a minute needs to look at a horse like this and say, let's just say he is 7-2, that he is on the morning line. Do you need to find out that he's not quite what we've seen him be capable of producing in the past now at this point with the barn change? And that's not meant to be a knock to Kelly Breen. It just is what it is. I'm going to sit back. I'll watch this race. If he runs great again, you know what? It at least allays some of those fears that I have. And if he throws in a bit of a clunker, then, maybe you can draw your conclusions from there.
I feel like we can't end this conversation until we at least say a couple of words about Mind Control. This horse has accomplished a lot in his time on the racetrack and will certainly be among the betting favorites. It certainly deserves a shout, if nothing else. I was just concerned about potentially being a shorter than maybe should be priced and maybe not getting the best scenario to run into. Wouldn't be the first time this one has slapped me in the face, however. What are your thoughts on Mind Control really fast? And then we'll pivot.
Yeah, he's a difficult one for me because, again, given the price, I don't really find him all that appealing because I don't know that he necessarily has any edge at all as far as speed figures are concerned. But there is that element, and we've talked about it a number of times in the past with any of these contests. There's still something to be said about horses that find the wire first. And he just feels like a winner through and through.
Very talented horse. Godspeed to you all out there, whoever you decide to play in the Grade 1 Breeders' Cup Winning You're In Carter Stakes. All right, Matt, let's talk about this race at Gulfstream. They are heading down to post to kick this thing off with race number 7. I thought this was one where the favorite could maybe be taken on. Nothing against the horse, but maybe just short enough at the odds. I was taking a look at Red Fog, the 4, who I thought might get the right kind of outside but forward trip in here. Are you playing in the contest, and what did you end up going with?
Yeah, I'm in the contest. I'm in this contest as well as another feeder over on Horse Tourneys. Red Fog was my backup in here, kind of for the reasons that you alluded to. I think he has the ability to be forwardly placed in a spot like this, and I wasn't enamored with the favorite in here. I went with a horse that, to be honest, I don't love the price. He was 15-1 on the morning line, but I went with the 7 Slippy. I felt like this was a horse that needed that most recent run. It was washed off the turf, going 5 furlongs, a sloppy sealed track. Not all horses need to love that. That was at the 12.5 non-2 level. Now we drop to the 6,250. And I have to believe that he's going to gain some fitness out of that most recent run. I know he didn't do a ton of running there that day, but I have to assume he's going to pick something up here. And the connections, they just keep rolling along down there at Gulfstream. So I'm not in love with the 7-2, but there's also a part of me that looks at that and says it might be a bit of a good thing, a good sign that he's taking the money that he is. That's where I went. I went with the 7 over the 4.
I get Slippy for sure. You see, the last day was off a giant layoff, and now coming back in just 12 days, catching money like this, it does feel like this one is live. I have not looked at the will pays. I wonder, though, if you might get at least a little bit of a bump up in odds, making this one a bit more appealing. Seems like a really nice contest horse, and I'm of the mind that the extra betting on this one is more a sign of liveness than, we're not getting all the price that we should. We'll see what happens here in just a few minutes. Is your Horse Tourneys contest, is this the first leg of that one, or is that one already underway?
That's a good question. There's a million things going on. No, the first leg of that one is Laurel's 6th race. So okay. That's not one that we have involved in this contest, but I'm trying to, and if I keep turning over, it's because I'm trying to look at the other monitor. I got a million things going on over here. You brought up a good point, though, and we've talked about it in the past, trying to, I don't want to say identify what the potential prices of the horses you're going to be playing are going to be, but using that double will pay or even the double probable if it's the race prior into the next race to try to get some sort of a feel. And you're right, the 7 in the double is considerably higher. You're talking 4th, 5th choice. And in this spot here is the co-second choice. So we'll see if there's any real late onslaught of money that shows up in a spot like this, maybe from some of the computers, but just based on the doubles, which are typically pretty reliable as far as trying to identify some stuff, the horse should go up from here.
Yeah, I think you can count on that. They are off and running in this 7th race at Gulfstream. Matt, you've done such a good job talking us through. It's not as good as Michelle Yu last week with that brilliant race call, but what are you seeing out there? Who's looking good so far?
Michelle set the bar entirely too high for someone like myself. Well West, it's the one who's out there. I don't think it's a crazy pace at all. Slippy, I love the position that the horse is in if he's good enough, sitting just off the speed, who I think he's probably just better than when it's all said and done. That opening quarter is definitely wrong. I know that for a fact. I they're not going that fast, but they're certainly not going that slow. So, at this point, I think everyone needs to be reasonably, if you're in the top 3, let's say, you need to be reasonably content with your positions. I've always maintained a 1-turn mile at Gulfstream. I'd rather be closer to the front trying to rally from off of it. As I say that, I'm sure someone from the back will try to make some big bid, but if you're in the top 3, I would feel pretty comfortable where you're at taking your chances.
Yeah, our horses are tripping out, that's for sure. For folks who didn't get the joke, the first quarter was briefly, before it was corrected, posted up on screen as 32-4. I think we could safely say that's not right. The whip is out on Slippy. We've got a horse making a wide move, the 8. Red Fog is just sitting, looks to have tons of horse, looking for somewhere to run. We'll see if the seam opens up here, and even if it does, it may be too late, because this 8 Dardanellos has gone right by and looks to have put this one to bed at the odds of 7-2. Red Fog finally slipping through and appears that will run, just hold second there. Looks like it's going to come 8-4-7 in the 7th race at Gulfstream. A 7-2 shot getting it done. We'll see shortly how many players we have in our contest and how many of them played that one. But not a lot to learn there. You fired. You did get that drift up to 9-2 in the end. The horse fired, just ultimately found a couple better on the day, it appeared.
Yeah, and this is one of those, not that it really makes a difference for you or I necessarily, but I do look at this race and say, as good as Dardanellos was, and look, I don't want to say been a revelation, but he's certainly seemingly turned the corner. He's run very competitively in each of his past 5 starts. I can't help but think that if the 4 were able to extricate himself earlier, because you said it, the horse was all bottled up, looked like the jockey had 2 fistfuls of dynamite and just nowhere to go. I don't know that the final margin is necessarily indicative of the difference between the first and second place horses.
I would agree. That was enough of a trip that that I would upgrade that performance. Hopefully it's not the kind of thing that will get completely latched onto and absolutely overbet the next time out. But I think that's right. You had a perfect trip, and you had a horse who was stuck in a vice and a couple of lengths at least in difference. So one that you could definitely make a little bit of an excuse for, at least.
And PTF, it's one of those things, that another piece that we've brought up in the past, the idea of kind of being the perfect trip until it is no longer the perfect trip. And I feel like that's in a way what we were dealing with Red Fog, because Dardanellos certainly came from much farther out of it and had to carry more ground. I understand that. But Red Fog, if you had asked someone, with 3/8 of a mile to go, you're probably feeling pretty darn good where you're positioned. You set the pocket for the most part the whole time. You just need to find a seam. Unfortunately, the seam never opened up.
It's a good point. This is one where I would assess zero blame to the rider. If I were the trainer and this guy came back, I'd say, hey, good job. Don't let that get in your head. It didn't work out that time. But if you keep your horse loaded and saving ground and in position like that, this isn't the case of some ginormous favorite where you can give up lots of ground and just sit outside. You got to ride and accept when those things happen, in my opinion. So no knock on the rider at all, but just didn't work out that time. Good stuff from Dardanellos.
I think also at this level, we're dealing with the basically the bottom level non-winners of 2 lifetime. If you can, I'd rather not have to come, and carry an extra 1/4 of a mile of ground with a horse that, all of these horses are battling for their second lifetime victory. So, like you say, I couldn't agree more. There's no blame on the jock there. It just didn't work.
Now, our next contest race isn't for a minute, right? Is it race 5 at Belmont, Matt? Do you have?
I believe so, as I pull up another screen over here. Race 5 at Belmont, so 3:27. So, we've got plenty of time, yeah.
And you mentioned Laurel before, and that put in my head something I just wanted to mention to folks today, which is we do have the restart of the Stronach Pick 5 today. And I, for one, am extremely excited about it. There's a lot of Pick 5s to talk about. There's this, a carryover at Laurel, a carryover at Belmont. But week in, week out, to me, this Stronach 5 is the best bet in racing. We've got a situation where you have a low takeout. That's one of the things we're always hammering on about, a 12% takeout. And due to a new deal JK and I have just struck with our old pals over at the place we were referring to before, the place with the letters, DRF. They said it would never happen, the JK and PTF DRF reunion. But it has in one way, shape, and form, because we've made a deal with them where they are going to be giving out free PPs for the Stronach 5 races. All you have to do is go to drf.com/ITM, answer a question there, and boom, you get You get free PPs, and that's hopefully going to be an ongoing thing to make this bet more appealing. We talk about what the game needs to do better, lower takeouts, and easier access to data. With the Stronach 5, you get both. And it's just a fun wager that plays out a little bit like a tournament in 90 minutes or so. That bet today is starting at, I think it's 351 is maybe the first leg of that. We are not going to be fully covering those races, but it's an interesting sequence. We do a whole podcast on it. And if you can even see the tickets that JK and I put together. If you go to that drf.com/ITM page, you can see exactly what, if you don't want to help us out by listening to the show, I guess you're going to run out of time, even at 2x speed. You can just see you can get the short answer and go, and we hope people will support that bet. We say it all the time. One of the things we can do as horse players is vote with our dollars. And we can do that by supporting entities like the Breeders' Cup, by supporting charities like the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation and the Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance. And you can also do it by supporting horse player friendly bets like the Stronach 5. With as involved as contests as you are this afternoon, Matt, are you going to be looking at any of those three pick fives that we discussed?
To be honest with you, it's been a combination of things. Anybody that's been paying attention to any of my stuff knows I'm running about as cold as you can run right now. And also, I don't want to say paralysis of, by analysis or however you want to term that, but it's kind of a little bit of that where, looking at this contest that we're dealing with every Friday, looking at the other contests that I'm involved in, technically I could have thrown together some sort of a ticket, and maybe I'll try to shove some sort of last second piece into the Belmont one or whatever the case may be. But I typically find that in instances like this, if I'm just trying to throw something together for the sake of doing it, very rarely does it work out. So maybe I'll put in a token play, $25, $30, but it won't be anything substantial.
Fair enough. And you have to respect, the opposite of the heat check too. If things are a little calm, and I swear as a student of past performances, times are going to be getting better for you in a hurry, but those aren't the times you want to mess around and take shots with things that you haven't had time to do the 100% job on. I think that's just smart horse playing and the kind of thing you need to do to keep yourself out of trouble. So we've got our first leaderboard. Let's see how many people. It looks like the top 11 today are going to win entries to the Saturday BCBC qualifier. Not bad at all. We've been one of the main things of interest a lot of these Fridays, and we didn't draw that many fewer people today than we've been doing. So that's a testament to our fans and the folks who have been sticking with us and enjoying these Fridays. So we thank all of you as well as the people listening. I had a player last night, Matt, tell me that part of his Friday night handicapping ritual for the weekend is to pull up the podcast and listen to these horse player happy hours. I thought that was a cool idea. Let me run down the players who've hit this first winner. You know what? There's too many of them. A lot of people have it. I'll cherry pick a few names that I see here. We'll Eric Kurzal, who's listed top overall. Jerry McLennan, who I've had the pleasure of hanging out with many times, a frequent NHC qualifier, as well as the racing manager for Paul Pompa, I believe. Good to see his name up there. Julie LeBoyko. Oh, heck, I'll do it. Alan Sadler, Todd Von Dree, Alistair Walbaum, Tony Joe ×3. How many times have we mentioned that name during these broadcasts?
Every week.
David Santoni, Michael Bailey, our old buddy Chris Couples, Mark Wilgard, Matthew Baca, Mike Somich. Good to see him on there as well. Lawrence Moyes, Stefan Gravina, John Colano, Kevin Dugan, and Stephen Vicari. All to play for. It's early days in this contest. To have that 7-2 winner, they get 13 back. But obviously, you'd rather start off with a winner than not. So congrats to them. Matt Bernier, what did you do in this Belmont race?
Let's see. Belmont, race number 5. I went with the number 9 in here, and I'm going to be curious about the price on Monkey See, Monkey Do. It's a little bit of an intriguing move here for me. This is going to be the first time for Mike Maker's barn actually on the grass, if my memory serves me correct. And I'm trying to find the PPs here. Here we go.
Love that angle.
So they went through, claimed this horse from Chad Brown's barn, which again is no small feat, trying to move a horse up on grass from Chad. But they did so, claimed the horse for 40, then ran back in a maiden special, was washed off the turf in November at Aqueduct, and he's been gone since then. I find it two things. As long as I haven't missed a jockey change, the fact that Rosario is up here, that's a positive to me anytime that Joel takes him out. The times that this horse has run on turf, each of the past two. So the run at Aqueduct November 10th, and then at Belmont on September 29th, pretty solid races, all things considered. The November 10th race, the winner Bray came back in his next start and earned a 76 buyer. The 7th place finisher, next out winner with a 70. And then you go to that 7/8 race at Belmont, which is going to be a pretty darn close sort of configuration to what we've got here this afternoon. There were 3 next out winners coming out of that race. So he's run into some decent horses, I think, in the 2 most recent turf races. I've made it clear workouts are not necessarily my forte. I just look at it and say, a time is a time. But typically when they're just cooking along at a normal rate, and then all of a sudden I've got a 59-2 bullet drill going 5/8, that at least, perks my ears up a little bit. And I go, okay, maybe that's something to consider. I think he should work out a decent enough trip. Right now, he's your 3-1 favorite. I kind of expected him to be in that 3-1 to 4-1 range. So I'm not too disappointed. And we'll take our chances here and see what happens.
That price steaming in there, and I like all the angles you mentioned on that one. I ended up going with Idle Time. Very, very logical also. There's just too much going on here for me to deny. I had the little bit of a trip at Tampa last time, adding blinkers, dropping in class. When I first looked at this field, it seemed like maybe this is a juicy place to try to find a long shot, just based on the fact that it's a big full field and a mile turf race at Belmont. But the more I looked, the more I dialed in to Idle Time, and I respect the 9 as well. So I'm just going to keep it very simple in what I'm operating with here in race number 5. You talked about Rosario, and I'm just filing now a little bit late, I suppose, my Belmont meet preview. And one of the things I did with the help of our own stats guru, I think he prefers to be called numbers nerd, but I'm going to go with stats guru, John Camardo, is to do a deep dive at different jockeys at different at different configurations. And one of the things that really stood out looking at all the numbers was how good Rosario is and how good Junior Alvarado is. They really stood out looking at some advanced metrics like impact value and breaking things down by distance and surface. So I came away wanting to upgrade all of their runners. I throw that out there as a bit of an aside.
Illman and I, back when I was at the Forum and we would be in the office, one of the riders that we continuously looked at and said, why isn't he getting more sort of publicity, simply because of the numbers? When we were looking at nothing more than win rate and most importantly, ROI, was Junior Alvarado on grass. It just, for the longest time, and it was probably within the first, I'm trying to remember when Junior made the move. I know for a while he was at Arlington, then he moved out to New York. It was probably close to when we first started at the Forum. So let's call it 14, 15, somewhere around there. And he would get these prices to run on grass. And it felt like for the longest time, the obvious names came up. And then you looked at it and we did a little bit of a deeper dive, and it was really enlightening to see that, boy, he can move horses up on grass in a big way.
Yeah, I think that's right. Something to pay attention to. Just want to reiterate for the audience that we're not showing the Belmont races on this feed, but fear not. I'm sure everybody is in a multi-screen situation like we are. If you put Fox Sports up, you'll be able not only to see the Fox Sports feed in beautiful HD of these Belmont races, you'll also be able to see in beautiful HD JK's Afro. So you get that. You get that as a bonus if you have. Keep our audio, but you can put that on as your second screen. We will continue to talk you all through the races here, but we did want to give that note. Put in a quick plug for our network. I meant to do that up top, but I forgot. We've got a lot of new people finding us through these Breeders' Cup Horse Player Happy Hour broadcasts. And if you want more from us and you go to the podcast on iTunes and you look at the In the Money media feed, you will find the Matt Bernier Show, as well as flagship In the Players podcast from JK and myself, as well as a ton of other great content as well, including Naomi Tucker's Racing to Me, Spencer Lugenbuehl with Redboard Rewind, and then special programs like the Woodbine Meet Preview we dropped this week. Very excited about Woodbine kicking off tomorrow. And, of course, the aforementioned Stronach 5 show. That's Stronach 5 getting ready to start in just about 25 minutes' time.
PTF, what else is new here? We take a look at this. They're loading in at Belmont. Santa Anita's getting ready to go at the same time, by the way. So that's the third leg of our contest.
Oh, good spot. Should we give a quick pick in that Santa race, maybe, even while they load here?
Yeah, I mean, look, I did like the 7 Big Fish. Unfortunately, that horse won't go. My alternate is the 1 Eagle in the Sky. It's not a super strong opinion. I was really, really interested, though, in the 7 horse before the scratch.
Yeah, that's Eagle in the Sky is real interesting to me. Very, very live-looking female family with 6 winners from 6 starters there. We're off at Belmont. Craig, maybe is it time to pick up the feed from Santa Anita? Are they going to run on top of each other, Matt? I don't have that.
They're going to run right on top of each other. I mean,
so hey, Craig, go ahead and put
the tradition unlike any other. Anyway, Belmont, and again, you've got the folks that are watching over on FS1. We've got a little bit of a duel out on the front between the 9 and the 3. I don't love this for my horse. We'll see what happens there. Going 22 flat for the opening quarter. They're off at Santa Anita with the 2-year-olds. These are Calbreds. The 3 broke like a shot. Peter Miller, first-time starter. All you need to know is Javier and Pratt decided to take them out first time out of the box. And the horse looks quite good all by himself on the front end.
I might have a frozen screen here, guys. Let me know if I need to hop out and hop back in.
No, I can't. I can hear you fine. I'm looking at the track right now, and again, Bolden is out there, who was bet down to 3 to 5. Doesn't seem to be any sort of real surprise from a wagering standpoint. And Pratt hasn't muscle yet. Meanwhile, at Belmont, 9 and the 3 are still out there, but you've got to assume these fractions are going to take their toll here pretty quick. They went 45 for the half. I'm waiting for somebody to start picking it up from the back of the pack. A long way to go at Belmont Park. Bolden looks home and hosed at this point. Looks like it's going to be a race for second. Maybe the 6 on the outside is going to be able to get the 1. It's going to be very close. The 1 is still hanging on.
I'm slipping through down at the rail at Belmont, and now there's something coming late in the middle of the track. The 4 needs the wire. The 2 is surging. I'm just a hold here.
Yes.
Pending any inquiry.
4-2-1, it looks like Belmont. Okay. And then 3-1-6 at Santa Anita, somewhere around there.
So the 1 race second. That's good. I'm going to drop out and come back in, Matt, to see if I can fix my video. Okay. And so with apologies, I'll leave it to you. JK hopped in for a second. If you can bring him back, that wouldn't be bad.
Yeah, we'll see if producer Craig can get JK squared away. In the meantime, as we were just talking about, it looks pretty formful at Santa Anita. Kind of I don't want to say a bad secret, but everyone apparently knew that Bolden was going to fire a big shot. It was 9 to 5 in the morning line. Wins comfortably at 3 to 5. At Belmont, you've got Idle Time, who went off at 4 to 1. A decent enough price for those of you that backed that one. I know PTF did. That horse that was second, 43 to 1 shot. So if you are playing in the contest and you had the 2 or you had the 4, you're going to get the best of both worlds. If you had the 4, you're going to get the win and an inflated place price. But if you had the 2, you're probably going to get close to a cap situation. We can hear JK. I don't think he can hear us.
Thank you.
Look at him. I don't think he knows that we're talking to him. He does know.
Well, I don't have any sound yet. Yes, you guys.
How are you, man?
What's up?
How are you? All good?
Good. I was getting my headphones. The mic doesn't pick up. But all right, what's going on? Am I winning? I'm playing in the contest.
I haven't looked, honestly, because we just had 2 races run right on top of one another, as usual. I mean, how else would it be? That's the only way for things to work. What did you have at Belmont? Anything good?
I gave it 6. He's like 40 to 1.
Okay. And
Andy just made fun of me.
What is your schedule the rest of the day? What are we looking at hit-wise? When are you in and out here? What's the story?
See you, Bobby. I'm after the post parade at Churchill and Belmont.
Okay.
Pretty much the rest of the day.
We can, while you're here, we can sort of give you the tip of the cap. Yesterday, I sent you a text earlier. I popped on FS1 just in time yesterday to see you talking about Tap It to Win. Did you envision that being the trip, him going right to the front and setting land speed records?
No, I remember the day that Basquiat won, and I didn't I didn't like the horse that day. And I just felt like maybe the horse just kind of ran into a bad field. And so I wanted to kind of parlay that opinion. And so I was looking for an alternative, and I just happened to land on Tap It to Win. I fell in love with Tap It to Win when he won on the rail at Saratoga this summer. And, obviously the rail wasn't the place to be all summer. And there's actually some arguments that maybe it was good that day. But that was kind of when he grabbed my attention. And he ran so well last time. I just had kind of, fallen in love with him a
I love the point that you brought up and the fact that it was a very confident move from Mark Cassidy to do that, because frankly, I thought all of a sudden they were going to keep him at those shorter distances with how well he looked in that return effort down at Gulfstream. They stretch him out to the mile and the 16th. And I would venture a guess, and the figures have come back quite strong all around. That's probably as good a non-one as a one other than that you're going to find this time of year. I would venture a guess that at least 2, maybe 3 of those horses are going to graded stakes in their next race.
Yeah, I mean, I think his buyer came back like 97 or something.
97, and I believe time form was somewhere around 116, 115, something like that. So, I mean, the numbers were strong all around. And I loved him going into it. He ran a little green. I thought it was a bit of a patient ride, but I have no issue with Mystic Guide either at this point. I thought the top 2 both ran quite well.
Yeah, I would think that Mystic Guide's got an opportunity to improve. And hold on, I'm working, guys. Hey, what's up over here? I think he's got a chance to improve it. I mean, the thing about it is I think he got bet because he was Triple Crown nominated yesterday, and I think that kind of like got everybody going.
Sure. I mean, I think that's stuff, especially with lightly raced horses, where as much as I love the way that he broke his maiden at the fairgrounds, he hadn't been tested against good horses yet. I mean, his debut going shorter, okay, he was very green. I thought it was a good educational debut. He goes and blitzes a let's call it less than stellar field down at the fairgrounds. Yesterday was his first real test. He got a little goofy on the far turn. He was on his right lead for a bit, then popped back to his left and whatnot. But, I don't lose any sort of faith in the horse's ability after a run like yesterday, despite the fact that he lost by the length of the stretch.
Yeah, I'm getting told I got to do something. So
do what you got to do. We'll talk to you in a bit. JK with the pop in. PTF is still working on changing over his connection. Let's take a look and try to get an idea where we're at. Prince of Caps. If you had the 2 horse at Belmont who ran second, you're going to get a cap price there from a place standpoint. The horse paid $32.60, so you'll end up with about $22 or whatever it may be as far as the cap is there. Here we go. We've got an updated leaderboard courtesy of producer Craig. Mike Somich is on top right now at $35. Stephen Vickery at $33. Zachary Agamemnonin. Sorry. Apologies for the butchering of the name. $29.20. Ronald Tang at $27.60. Aiden Quigley and Loyal Sprague are both at $22. They're tied for 5th. Scott Coles is at $20.40. He is actually solo 7, I would imagine, because of a tiebreaker, along with a number of other folks that are tied at $20.40. And that'll bring you right through the top 11, because then the bubble right now is a tie for 12th at $18.60. So PTF, I think we've got you back now. We've got a long way to go here. I don't think any of the numbers are so outrageous that people need to be panicking. But overall, I mean, so far, your thoughts on what we've seen?
It's so wild. We've had such a dearth of action with so few tracks running, and now it's a bit like back to business as usual in a funny way, in terms of having all this racing on at once. So that was great spot by you. I would have missed the Santa Anita race completely, but it still feels to me like my main takeaway here would be it's all to play for. We have 6 races left. I don't think there's anybody who could consider themselves out of this at this point. They're going to have to get moving and grooving sooner rather than later. But we're definitely in a place where a lot of people can still look to get up to that top 11, win that seat to tomorrow, where they can focus on trying to win this $10,000 Breeders' Cup betting challenge. It looked like the timing worked perfect. JK popped by for a minute while I was dealing with my tech nonsense.
It was very good. He came in, everything seemed to be good, but he was getting the phone call, and you could see that he was working, trying to get some other things straightened out. So I said, you go do what you need to do. We'll talk to you in a little bit.
That's great.
Yeah, but everything, and I was actually just kind of giving him a tip of the cap. I turned on FS1 or FS2, whichever channel it was yesterday, just in time to see him give out Tap It to Win, who won very, very impressively, right to the top. Big figures, 97 buyer, I think like a 115 time form US rating. But I said to him, not only, obviously there's really not a lot to knock about that performance from that horse, but I really loved Mystic Guide going into it, and I don't feel any worse about him coming out of it. I thought he was a little green, a little bit goofy in behind horses, but to me, he feels like a horse that is going to want every bit of ground going forward, not just because of the way that he moves, but from a pedigree standpoint.
I think that makes sense. And he ceded that tactical advantage in that spot to Tapit to win too, who was able to completely control that race on the front end, if I'm remembering it right. I don't think there's any reason for you to get off there. And I'm not ready to give up on Basquiat. I know, JK and I argued about it a bit on the show. He wasn't too impressed, but I thought he showed some real toughness. I thought he ran through one of the few Chad Brown stats that I tend to want to bet against with first-time starters in dirt sprints, and I still think that might be a horse with a future as well. So that's going to end up being a live-looking race in my reckoning. Did you run through the new leaderboard here, Matt?
I did, yes. And again, we're not dealing with anything too crazy, and the bubble is right there at 11th. You've got a log jam in that 7-8 range at $20.40, and then the bubble is 12th at $18.60. So, I mean, this thing is far from over. We still have 6 races to go. And if you're like me, I may have grabbed a couple bucks. I got to take a look. But if you're like me and you're clearly not in the thick of things right now, no need to panic. Got a long way to go.
Plenty to go. The next race is going to be Gulfstream's 8th. Just looking up and down the names, we'll give a shout out to our friend Scott Coles, NHC champion from 2019. Good to see his name up there on the leaderboard, and as part of that glut with 2040 at the back half of the qualifying numbers. I do see another funny thing. Harlan, Bettelski. I'm going to go with Bettelski. That doesn't sound right. I apologize for botching your name, Harlan, but you're not going to worry about it too much. You're not too obsessed with this contest because you just played all the 4s. So props to you for playing all the 4s and getting involved, even if you didn't have time to handicap, unless, who knows, maybe Harlan just liked all the 4s in this contest. Have you ever done that, Matt? Have you ever been in a situation where you qualified into a game and forgot and had to do the whole thing in short order and put in one number?
Not to the... Look, I will do everything in my power, and it's not necessarily. Look, I get it's worked for some folks with all the one number. I would almost feel guilty if I did win with all one number. So even if it is a last second job, it's a matter of who's going to make the front and just give me that number. I have a very hard time sitting there saying I'll have all 2s, and God forbid I do well. I don't want to hear about it afterward. And but look, you bring up another piece to it. And I know our friend Shona, she does something similar where from a donation standpoint, at the end of the day, you're donating to a good cause. And even if you don't have the time to go through and do the yeoman's effort as far as work is concerned, you're still donating to a good cause. So this would be probably the rare instance where I would sit there and be like, you know what, I'm okay if I take all 1s in here or all 7s, just simply because, you know what, I know I'm helping the greater good as far as the game is concerned.
My general attitude about it is, so I welcome it. If there's any kind of entry fee, I welcome it. Where I think it got a little funny was in the free NTRA contest, where one could make an argument that it's so hard to win, to get value out of those contests anyway, that picking all the same number isn't far from the optimal strategy, at least in the old way they used to do it. I know they have some new formats now. We are down to 0 minutes at Gulfstream Race 8. I think we should take a look at this race, Matt. I need to take a quick look again because I wasn't sure if this was going to be on dirt or turf earlier when I looked at it, but I'll have it all figured out by the time that you come back after you give your selection. What do you like in Gulfstream's 8th?
Yeah, if I'm looking at the tote correctly, I actually am quite surprised about the price on the horse that I like, and maybe it's because of the connections, but I went with the number 6 Tenacity Zip in here. 8-1 on the morning line, 10-1 right now. The logic for me with this horse is Jonathan has been the one that really has turned me on to the idea that in 5/8 turf sprints, you're better off being close than you are for coming from the back. And I get it. You can still close and win races if everything sort of sets up beautifully. But with a horse like this, doesn't have to have the lead, but if it's given to him, can still go on with it and be effective. And take a look and see. I'm not going to hold the stakes race 3 starts back against him. One, it was washed off the turf, and Extravagant Kid, we know, is just a tough as nails racehorse all around. And the 2 most recent turf runs ran against Tiger Blood. And we know that Tiger Blood is basically the MVP down there of these races in South Florida. So I'm not going to hold those against. The horses run well fresh in the past, and that's what we're dealing with here. One at this sort of similar-ish level. I know it was open 16 compared to the starter allowance here this afternoon. But with Prado aboard and that run 4 starts back, I'm hopeful for something close to that. And again, from a price standpoint, I'm certainly not going to complain about 10-1. I figured the horse would take a little bit of money.
That's a good price for a horse who may well be the best of speed. I'm boring here. I feel like What's Inside has enough tactical speed. I see Paco working the thing, giving sort of an early speed looking workout. I wonder if he wants to be even a little bit closer than the pace figures would suggest. And What's Inside has plenty of finish and should be in a good tactical position. It's boring, but if you're playing pick bets or just looking for something, I can't be more creative than that. But I do like your call on the 6, drifting up to 11-1 as they approach the gate for Gulfstream. Is this a favorite you'd consider saving with an exactas or anything, or one you're just happy to take on?
No. I mean, you have to look at him, and if you're being just totally objective about it, he's strictly the horse to beat in here. I just mentioned Tiger Blood. He gave Tiger Blood a little bit of a run for his money 2 starts back. So the interesting thing, and I'm glad you sort of pointed it out, and I actually talked about it on my pod the other day. You're very good. You're one of the people that I trust as far as sort of paddock observations, but even just that observation right there about Paco kind of, let's say, a little more vigorous warm-up for a horse that typically comes from, against better horses, albeit a few lengths off of it. Maybe he's going to be a little bit closer with this drop in class here this afternoon.
That would be helpful. That would definitely be increasing of the chances. Let me pull some video up here so I can see how far away we are. Oh, we are in the gate and getting ready to pop at Gulfstream.
Yeah, so it'll be curious, like you say, if the 8 is a little bit sort of, if Paco wants to push along a little bit, I would imagine Tenacity Zip will be forward. Maybe a horse like, New York's Finest broke through at the $16,000 claiming level most recently. He can be involved in a spot like this, but he didn't really set a fast pace in that most recent run, so we'll see what we get there. It's an interesting race, and again, these turf sprints, they've never been my favorite, but at the same time, the reality of the situation is there are more and more of these races being carded. They are all down Gulfstream, and it looks like, Pete, you were right on top there. I mean, the idea that they're going to be a little bit more aggressive with What's Inside. He's up there dueling 3 wide with New York's Finest and Factorino. I'm surprised my horse is as far back as he is at this point. But, I mean, if they're really throwing it down, I'm also not going to be too disappointed.
Yeah, it really looks like they're going hammer and tongs. What's Inside is, I think, in a terrific stalking spot there with the 3 already being asked. Which is it? The 6 running on now that we're looking for you?
Yeah, so the 6 is my horse. Now the problem is, I think he's running. I just think he's going to have too much to do, and this thing completely falls apart. I think he's going to possibly get a piece of this if he changes. No, he's just kind of flat now at this point.
The 4 making a big run through at the inside. Looks like the 1 right now. The 8, the 3 won the duel of the speeds. Will be best of speeds, but they're all running for second. Now here's one who's really going to shake up the contest situation. La Hinch at, was it 19-1?
19-1, and I mean, look, this is a fascinating kind of case study because I would never have this horse in a million years. You could give me 15 more tries, I wouldn't have him. This is a horse that has predominantly been campaigned going 2 turns. The shortest the horse has ever gone on turf is 2 turns, 7.5 furlongs. This was his first try going 5/8, and he goes to the winner's circle. I mean, his most recent run on New Year's Day was at 1 mile and an 1/8. I mean, this is just not a horse that I'm going to probably come up with in any fashion, and I don't feel too bad about that.
No, that's a tricky one. I mean, it does seem like it played for something to come running. And if you look at closing sectionals, would have some of the best closing sectionals. Why wouldn't you, if you wanted to play a closer and a cutback, I'd probably look more at a horse like Cable Channel, who would have figured to handle it better than La Hinch. But hey, if you were creative enough, and I guarantee you, there's a lot of people playing in this contest and listening along who were, you're going to get rewarded. And this is going to cause quite a turn up on the leaderboard. I'll take a quick peek and see if anybody who was in contention used this one. Well, of course, our man Harlan. Harlan is home and hose down. I'm pretty sure if you're going to add that to the...
He's
he can start handicapping. Loaded Saturday of stakes all around the country. I can't wait for this. We talked about the win and you're in Carter, Breeders' Cup win and you're in Carter, Grade 1 at Belmont. Other stakes races there, including the return to the races of Code of Honor. Out west, we've got some really fun showdowns. Did you have you had a look at the Santa Anita Derby yet?
I have, yeah. I'm going to be on tomorrow on Facebook and Twitter, I believe, the two spots for America's Best Racing. And it's kind of Captain Obvious. I have a difficult time drawing up a scenario where it's not one of the two big horses. Right. I think Authentic is, he's always been sort of the Rodney Dangerfield of the 3-year-olds for Baffert this year, where he's done nothing wrong, but he gets zero respect compared to what we had seen from Charlatan and Nadal. Now with Nadal out, and we'll see what happens with Charlatan when it's all said and done. Authentic is a very, very interesting prospect. I've loved Honor AP from jump. He just looks like a stakes caliber dirt router if there's ever been one. He checks all the boxes visually, and this is coming from someone who is definitely not an expert as far as what good horse flesh looks like compared to something else. I just have a really difficult time getting around either one of those two.
I agree, and I do give preference to Honor AP. I just feel like he's got so many reasons to overcome that 2-length gap. Had license to be a little bit short, having missed the training time earlier in the year. When Mike Smith was on the podcast with Naomi Tucker early this year, he was still speaking about the horse in the most glowing, this is my Derby horse type of terms. And then there's the breeding angle, where you look at Honor Code and the AP Indy line. These are not just precocious horses. When they are precocious, they tend to be extra talented. They grow into their bodies. They get better with age. I think in the months between those last two starts, Honor AP, especially as not the favorite, is the one that you want to be on. I feel fairly strongly about that. Frank Scattoni and I went over the Santa Anita Stakes, and actually we did the whole late pick 5 on the podcast if folks want to check that out. We both landed there in this one. And it's going to be a heck of a horse race, and I certainly don't mean to disrespect the Baffert runner, but I feel I have a good intuition about this one, and it's just a horse race I'm really looking forward to seeing. What else in tomorrow's cavalcade of stakes races and good races around the country are you looking forward to seeing, Matt?
Well, we touched on the Carter at the top. I think that really, to me, it feels like it's so good to be back at Belmont. It's so good to have racing back in New York. But now we've got proper top level. And look, that stake yesterday, I know it was only, an $80,000 stake or whatever it was. that was at least a grade 2 or a grade 3. As far as the company and the talent in that turf race going a mile and 3/8 is concerned. You had multiple grade 1 winners in the field. But the Carter is definitely at the top of the list. Everything out at Santa Anita is so fascinating because I took a look at the Hollywood Gold Cup, and I am thankful. I like that they've sort of reverted back to calling it the Hollywood Gold Cup and not the Santa Anita Gold Cup or the Gold Cup at Santa Anita, whatever it was. It's not the strongest field I've ever seen. I don't know. You got a horse like I believe Midcourt is. The talent is there, but I've been told by a few different people that the connections don't really know when he's going to run and when he's not going to run. And that's a very difficult proposition for me to wager on. If the connections don't have any real good feel for whether or not he's feeling good or not, or he's going to fire, how can I confidently bet him at a short price when acknowledging his best is certainly good enough to win in a spot like this? We get the return of Higher Power, who, again, he's probably a little bit of an underrated racehorse as far as, the grand scheme of things are concerned. I feel like we talked about this a few weeks ago. I've never liked Improbable going longer. I don't like the idea of him getting out beyond, frankly, beyond a mile and a 16th, maybe a mile and an 1/8. For Baffert to push him out to a mile and a quarter, it's either a lack of other opportunities, but I would have felt him a great fit for a race like the Carter. And for him to not ship to New York and keep him at home for 10 furlongs, it at least makes me reconsider and say, again, Baffert has won races like this with lesser talent. I really would have thought a 7/8 race at Belmont would have been better suited for a horse like this. But if he keeps him home to go 10 furlongs, maybe there's something there.
And even to add to that, Matt, remember, he was going to run in that race at Oaklawn at the end of their meet. I guess it was the Oaklawn handicap, and scratched from that because I believe the announcement of this race, let me mute that, the announcement that this race was going to be happened after he was entered for that, but before they raced. So decided to scratch and reroute. This is like a plan. And then when you look at the work tab that Improbables have, I'm with you. I last year questioned his ability to go 1.25 miles from the Derby on, but this just has a now or never feel to me. And in a race where I don't trust the others, I'm going to go ahead and do something that if you told me last year, hey, you're going to bet Improbable going 10 furlongs next year, I would have said, nah, that's not going to happen. But it is, because I just feel like he's laid out for the race. I haven't seen the Clocker report on how these works have looked, but looking at the work tab, it's unusual. I think this might be a case of Baffert having figured something out and finding the right field. That's how I'm going to bet it anyway.
You know, you bring up the work tab, and I mean, Baffert is typically a guy who we will see fast works from all of his horses basically across the board. And typically, if they don't work fast, there's a reason. They're probably not all that good. I don't know that I can recall seeing a tab like this for a Baffert runner.
Looks like Alan Jerkins took over the horse for the last couple of works.
We've got, of the 3 most recent works, we're going 7/8, a mile and 7/8. I've never seen Baffert do that. Very clearly, they're trying to get some stamina into him, knowing that we're going 10 furlongs. And, you know, it kind of, we can go back a little bit to the Santa Anita Derby talk. I maintain 2 turns at Santa Anita. If you are not forward, you need the thing to completely fall apart in front of you to have any chance. And I'll be very curious to see how Drayden Van Dyke handles a horse like Improbable. If there are concerns about the distance, you know, we've seen it in the past. I feel like a number of times in New York, riders who are on arguably the most talented horses, but they're afraid of the distance. They're very conservative early on. The problem is you almost want to use your speed to your advantage and try to just open up and outlast everyone. I would be very, very curious to see what Van Dyke does aboard this horse, because I'm still dubious about the distance and what happens, even if he's a length or 2 ahead turning for home. I mean, what are we going to get for that stretch run?
It's going to be fascinating to see how they end up running out there at Santa Anita in the pair of grade 1s they have. Something a little strange going on at Belmont. It says that they are 1 minute to post, but they're still in the paddock, so we might get a little delay there.
This is the old drag for that pick 5.
That's what it is. Yes. Of course, I should have known that. I thought the pick 5 was the next race. But
race 6 here. Yeah.
Okay. I got that. I got my brain wrong. Okay.
Total pool, we're just shy of 1.4 million.
Gotcha. And right, I would imagine the Stronach 5 has probably popped, or I don't know what they're doing at Laurel. We've got that going on. We've got this going on. Let's take this opportunity to do a quick leaderboard look.
Sure. And by the way, for those that are interested in the Stronach 5, 8 minutes until the opener at Laurel. So you still got some time if you're getting down on that too.
Boy, so it's like competing post tracks. Yeah, but that's okay. That's okay. So I'm going to try to pronounce Harlan's name correctly this time, and I apologize for the butcher job the first time out. I'm very sensitive to this, having an unpronounceable last name. Harlan Batulski. I'm going to go with Batulski. And if we can get corrected on that, I'd appreciate it. Harlan is our overall leader with 77.40. Second, Lawrence Moyse, 70. Third, Mark Willigard, 70. Fourth, Bev Hendry, 62.60. Fifth, David Burke, 62.60. Then we've got Stefan oh my goodness, I'm killing these names today, and I apologize to those out there.
Stojakovic.
Is it Stojakovic or just Stojkovic?
You know what? When I saw it, I immediately thought of Pedro Stojakovic. So I apologize. Yeah, it's darn close.
There might be another letter in there.
Apologies, there might be one
more. It's amazing we haven't done this to people more. 57. Here's one I can do, an Italian one. Mike Boreale, 57. How about this? Steve Wolfson Sr., NHC Hall of Famer in there, legendary figure in contests. Not only has he finished high up at the NHC, he has sired an NHC winner, and his son Steve Jr. has also ran second a couple of years ago. Chris Dewey with 57. Mike Somich, who we talked about before, Somo Bombs, $35 in 10th place. Stephen Vickery in 11th with 33. And those are the folks who are advancing as of right now to tomorrow's Breeders' Cup Qualifier on Horseplayers.com. We're on the track at Belmont. Let's just double check. Let's take a peek, because unfortunately, are we now going to be back in a Santa Anita clash situation, or
very close?
are we still staggered there?
4 minutes at Santa, and at Belmont it says 2, but they're just coming out onto the track now. So I mean, this could be it's going to be very close. Let's put it that way.
And we'll talk about the races. I think that's the best thing to do, so folks can get their bets in. What did you think here in the 6th race at Belmont?
So this was an interesting spot for me because, you kind of go through and take a look at this field. I think you can go a few different ways. I was curious about the pace situation, and I recognize that maybe on paper he looks a little bit class compromised compared to some of the other names, but I just thought Tribeca was interesting, the 5 for Chris Engelhart. Engelhart has 2 in here, and I like the fact that he has speed, and up until that most recent run at Aqueduct back in February, he had never passed a horse in his life. He readily conceded the lead and still was able to go and get the horse that ended up sort of faltering a little bit and ended up running 3rd. That was Chateau. I guess, is it an optical illusion? Did Chateau stop, and is that why Tribeca went and got him? Or was it just a really gutsy effort from Tribeca? I'm hopeful it's the latter of the two. The 2 horses that ran 2 and 3 in that spot, Vorticity and Chateau. Vorticity came back and earned an 89 buyer. Chateau was the next out winner with a 96 buyer. And I just thought this was a little bit of an intriguing number. I know you can twist statistics a million different ways to either fit or sort of go against an argument. Chris Engelhart, past 5 years, dirt sprint, first after a 61 to 180 day layoff, with last out winners in Naira, 4 for 16 with a 701 ROI. The winners were 27 to 1, 9 to 2, 10 to 1, and 9 to 1. So this wouldn't be a stunner if this horse ran well at 5 to 1 right now. I was hopeful for at least the morning line. That was 4. So I'm quite content with this horse at 5 to 1, acknowledging this is not an easy group.
Now, the horse I was going to pick is shorter. If I'd known the price, I wouldn't have put this horse in my notes as the one I wanted to pick. But now I just saw him on the track, and the horse looks really good and broke post to have a little private warm-up, which is something I always like when they're doing it within themselves. Just makes the horse look sound and happy. I'm talking about the 2 Mount Travers here, who I originally thought might benefit from a potential pace meltdown. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. We've seen horses come from the back at Belmont. So I'm just going to go ahead and stick with my guns and give Mount Travers in this spot. Dropping in class, has potentially a few reasons to improve, I think, just in terms of the race flow that's going to be here as opposed to what's been going on in the past. 9 to 2, I wouldn't want any shorter, but I'll still take a little nibble. We got to talk about Instagram. I mean, this is a fascinating horse. And one thing that folks, I think, need to look at when you're looking at trainer changes is changes in training style. And sometimes I just love it when it's something completely different. Like if it's a Bill Mott horse going to Linda Rice, we've seen a lot of those horses move up. I associate the Linda Rice style being a little bit more active and busy with the charges than the more laissez-faire Mott style. This is maybe the exact opposite, going from the hands of Hollendorfer and then the assistant. And this is a point that I'm half stealing from JK when we talked about this race earlier this morning, so I will point that out. But then his assistant Chatlow's going to, that's more than busy style of training. That's, very, very much very demanding college basketball training camp style training of horses, very much of a program. And then going to Chad Brown, who I think is a little bit different in the way he gets his horses ready in the morning. There are reasons for this horse to improve and go back to what we all once thought that he might be. I am not betting Instagram here, and I feel like the 2 to 1 is certainly pricing in the potential improvement. But the point that JK ultimately made to me that I have to just steal and agree with is there isn't a more interesting horse running this afternoon than Instagram to check out and see how he does. What did you make of him?
I mean, I wouldn't touch him with the 10-foot pole at the price. But having said that, I mean, he's always felt like that horse that, one turn is going to be his game. And I don't know if it's going to be at 6. I don't know if it's going to be at 8. But he just has never really given the indication that the stamina is really there. And, he could be a major player going forward in a division like this. This could be just a nice sort of jumping off point. Will he ever get back to the 2-year-old form? We'll find out. It's not like he's been a slouch in these other races that he's run. He just hasn't. It's almost one of those things where the hype was so high with him that it was almost going to be very difficult to live up to the expectations. So we'll see what we get here this afternoon. They're still milling around. We've at least got to touch on the second at Santa because they're getting closer to the gate. I thought this was a fun little race here. A mile on the grass. It looks like there's a fair amount of speed signed on. I ended up going with the 3 in here. And, good things come in pink. I broke the maiden most recently at the Calibred level. Obviously you're dealing with open company as opposed to stakes bred Calbred runners. I just liked the way that the horse ran. I thought it was a pretty cushy trip, but there was still plenty left in the tank turning for home. I thought Fuentes gave a good ride there, and I'm hopeful we're going to get some sort of a similar situation here. I think a lot of it depends on what you're going to get from some of these horses stretching out in distance, just how fast are they going to go early on. But I ended up going with the 3, and I think the price is fair. 72 I'm okay with.
That's square. I did think they were going to go a good gallop here, and I thought it would set things up for the best closer. I'm not 100% sure that Sutro was the best closer, but that's who I landed on for the role. I would have liked a little bit more than the 5-2 currently on offer, but this horse is improving and I think is going to get a good setup. So I'll try the 8. I wouldn't mind if I were playing picks or something, taking those 2, the 3 and the 8 against the field here to try to get things moving and grooving with whatever your action is out there at Santa Anita.
So obviously this is going to be another one of those where we're just going to be right on top of each other. And by the way, if you are playing the Stronach 5, the kickoff leg is about to go to post as well at Laurel. So, the more things change, the more they stay the same in horse racing, where we've got 3 tracks all right on top of one another. But they're almost all loaded in at Santa Anita. They're about to load in at Belmont. I see Naomi Tucker on the screen at Laurel Park right now.
Nice.
And they're off at Santa Anita. It'll be interesting to see what we get for some sort of I don't want to say a skirmish early on, but who's going to go to the front and who's going to clear off the one horse who I expected him to be forward. I didn't think he'd clear off as easily as he did. And he took a ton of money. He was 3-1. Now he's 8-5 as they break from the gate.
Wow. That's interesting. Somebody betting a lot of money did have this one out on the lead and potentially lonely with that kind of money, but it looks fast. They're strung out. The horse, just based on the cadence of the legs, they're running a little bit. 23, basically 23 flat. And now this is interesting. An early move from a long shot in Roses and Candy. Maybe going to keep this one going. Already being asked is so much happy. That was very interesting tactical decision. Didn't want the 4 to get up to the throat latch and letting it out even more. This is going to be interesting to see if this one has the stamina to hang on.
Meanwhile, we're off at Belmont. They're already working their way into the far turn. Tribeca cleared off to the front. Amundsen is kind of breathing down his neck right now. We haven't seen any fractions. 22-1 at Belmont. Now we're going into the far turn at Santa Anita as the horses are still getting ready to load into the gate at Laurel if you're playing the Stronach 5. It'll be interesting to see if anybody does any running from the back of the pack at Santa Anita because 46-4 now, 11-1 for 3 quarters. It's fast, but it's not blazing fast. You know what I mean?
Sutro's making the run on the outside. Is going to have to be really good to run down the 7 who just made the lead and really
come on, really Tribeca. Dig in, Tribeca.
Let's see if we can get Sutro up here. We'll get winners on both coasts. Sutro makes the line. You're ahead of me, so I'm going to skip over to the other feed so I can watch this with you.
And Tribeca is home. I think you're going to round out the exacta though with the 2.
Nice, not bad. Coast to coast.
And I'll tell you what, that should actually, if anybody decided to play that should be a decent little number because I think Mount Traverse ended up somewhere around maybe 5-1, somewhere around there, and Tribeca ended up at 6-1.
We caught a little drift. I'm very happy to see that. Great pick. And so Tribeca wired him there?
Yeah, went right to the front. I expected there to be a little bit more sort of resistance early on. And he's an in-form horse, a sharp horse. And he's one of those old hard hitters who, look, he's never going to be mistaken for a superstar, but he is still, I'm trying to think of a good way to put it. Yeah, 6-1 over 5-1. I'm trying to think of a good sort of comparison where I wouldn't call him your 4A baseball player, but pretty, because I think a lot of people, right or wrong, view that as a negative, that you're not quite a major leaguer, but you're better than a minor leaguer. And I feel like that kind of fits with a horse like this. And there are so many horses like this across the country. Again, without them, there's no game. But you're not quite stakes caliber, but you're much better than a claimer.
It's a great point. And yeah, and there's plenty of good claimers even, of course, but
for sure.
The idea is fantastic, because when you think about a quad A player in baseball and you think about what percentage of the population they're in, like how good are you at baseball? You're in the top, whatever, 2%.
Yeah.
And for horses, it's not dissimilar. You think about how many horses there are, how many horses are truly graded stakes caliber. To be in that in between, you're still darn good, and you're going to be able. The quad A player can still hit the game-winning home run to send the team to the playoffs, and Tribeca can still he gets the right setup. He'll beat graded stakes horses.
It was always one of my favorite things. I can't remember who it was, but I had a buddy of mine at one point. He's like, and I'm not just saying that. Well, I am saying it a little bit because we just saw the documentary, but the whole thing with Jordan hitting 215 or whatever it was in AA, he's like, he wasn't that good. I'm like, do you recognize how hard it is to hit 200 in professional baseball, period? But AA, I mean, where, frankly, AA is where you have most of your up and coming prospects. AAA, many of the young kids will just skip AAA and go right to the majors. For him to just, after playing years of basketball, to just show up and hit 220 in AA baseball, that might be as impressive, if not more, than any of the other accomplishments that he had on the hardwood. It's incredible. And I don't think he gets the credit he deserves for that.
You hear somebody like Terry Francona talk about it as well.
Yeah.
I mean, they were friends, but I don't think he's just blowing smoke. It's that guy's a shrewd evaluator of baseball talent, and had his life been different, says he would have encouraged him to carry on. It's pretty fascinating. I couldn't bring myself to watch the Jordan documentary. I couldn't stand watching the Charles Smith play again. Maybe I could just watch it at some point and skip that. It's okay though. I've had there's been some apostasy in this house. I now consider myself, since their existence, a Brooklyn Nets fan. So I'm no longer Knicks afflicted. Now I just have the Mets to kick me in the knees from time to time. I've lost track of Gulfstream. Are we? Is that our next stop?
So Gulfstream is where we're going next. They're behind the gate. Actually, no. So they're going to wait. They're going to let the opener of the Stronach 5 go off, it looks like.
Good.
So, but they are on the track. The one right now is your favorite at 9-5. And we have an updated leaderboard, it looks like, with 3 to go. Look, these are big numbers.
Yeah, we've seen some
6
prices
races
now.
In, big numbers. Mark Wilgard is now our leader at $92.
That is a very big number.
Let me run and refill. And if you want to run down the leaderboard, I'll be back.
Yeah, I'll do the leaderboard and vamp for a minute, and we'll be in very good shape. Okay, so Mark Wilgard, as Matt said, gets to the top. Had that big price winner. It looks like, let's see how many people in the contest had that 4. It looks like there was about 9 people who had that really big price. In the last leg at Gulfstream, we got 1 minute, so really 5 or 6 minutes to the next Gulfstream. We really do have some time here. But anyway, the folks who had that 4 are now at the top, and they are Mark Wilgard, Lawrence Moyes, Harlan Batulski, Steve Wolfson Sr. So happy to see his name up there. That year at the NHC, when he was inducted into the Hall of Fame, along with my friend Paul Sherman, I had the pleasure of doing the induction, I guess you'd say. It was a great honor. Steve Stojkovic, I think Matt's right. Stojkovic sounds really good. We're going to go with that, Steve. And it's Stefan, so maybe you don't say Steve. Oh, we'll go Stefan Stojkovic. In 4th, tied for 4th with the 63.50. Bev Hendry, 62.60. Also with 62.60, David Burke. Mike Boreale with 57. Chris Dewey listed in 9th. The final player who had that 4 horse, the Big Bomb, with $57. And then Zach Agamenani, Stephen Vickery, and that closes out our top 11. The cut line right now, 45. We've got 3 races left to go. The next one is going to be this 9th race at Gulfstream Park. They're going to hold this race another minute, it looks like. A couple of more minutes, probably. That Stronach 5 is about to begin. I'm curious to see what they handled there. Hoping that they did. Looks like that race just ended, actually, at Laurel. That should speed things up a little bit anyway at Gulfstream. Very curious what they handled in that bet. We'll take a look at that. I'm hoping, it's such a great bet, and it's so great to have it back. I hope it didn't get lost in the chaos and all the craziness of things going on today with the carryover at Laurel, and also, of course, the one at Belmont Park that we just talked about. Be interesting to see what happens with both of those bets. We could see some really big numbers out and about there in the world. But now that I think Laurel's in the books, Matt, and they're getting ready to go to post at Gulfstream.
Let's see. So is Laurel actually off yet? I don't think they are.
Oh, they're still holding. I
think
apologize.
They're dragging, yeah.
Maybe what it is, I said that wrong. I just got a text from a friend that said I'm out, but I realized he could have been talking about Naira.
I was going to say Belmont's giant carryover. I think
you should have been watching the show and using your horse.
I caught the tail end of what you were just talking about. You hope it doesn't get lost in the shuffle on a day like today. I think the thing that will always be attractive about the Stronach 5, no matter what, is, and it may sound counterintuitive, but I think more and more people are warming up to the idea of, the 50-cent base bet's great, but I think I don't want to say it dilutes the pool, because obviously it's a pick 5 and it's still going to have a ton of money as far as the handle is concerned and things like that. But that $1 base, it may not sound like a big difference. So it's a giant difference. The amount of coverage that many people can afford to dive in with, I mean, literally, it's halved. So I think that's always the thing. And that's why we've seen as many carryovers as we have in this wager.
Counterintuitively, it's a better thing for smaller players. It took me a long time to come around to this. When lower minimums came in, I was all for them. And I loved the idea that I could cover more combinations. But I've talked to several folks and folks with knowledge of how computer betting works. And those folks with the low minimums are just able to create and write such efficient tickets that I do think I don't know if it dilutes the pool, but I do think it dilutes the value in the pool and makes it much harder for the average player to get paid more than they should. I do think that the $1 minimum preserves that idea. And it's also just about the Stronach 5. I don't think you see nearly as much computer money in for one reason or another. And that's why so often with the Stronach 5, when it comes back and you see what it pays relative to the parlay, it pays really well. And it looks like they're getting ready to kick things off for that bet. So I imagine they're not going to muss with Gulfstream until that happens. So
yeah, I was going to say Gulfstream's actually just changed their feed over to Laurel. So they're going to, at the very least, wait and let this race go off. Kind of to your point, and I believe you guys have touched on it. They're off at Laurel. If you're trying to get in the Stronach 5, wait till next week. It's, our friends at the Stronach group, the idea of that I don't know what they're calling it, the golden state or the golden hour daily
golden
double.
Hour double. Yeah, the golden hour double.
With the $5 minimum, I would like to see, I don't want to say more marketing done for it, but I'm going to be curious to see what the overall sort of reaction to that is, because it's still relatively new. And it kind of feeds into that idea that initially, maybe you're a little bit, a little gun shy given the fact that it's going to cost you more to play it. But I'd be very curious to see what the overall reaction is, because I think that's the kind of wager that is not necessarily a bad thing for a lot of tracks to think about implementing.
I think the golden hour double, my gut is it'll do well, and I'm worried I'm going to get run down here at Laurel by this horse in the middle of the track, but hopefully Abuelo Paps is going to find a little more and pull it out. It looks like I'm okay. Maybe a little bit of a hang job from the 3 helped out there. But I think it'll succeed as sort of a get-out bet. I don't think you get the full benefit of the higher minimum when it's only a double, because there's so, the mathematical universe of combinations that can possibly be played is so much lower. But I still think it'll do well. And I'm all for tracks experimenting and doing different things with minimums. And, we'll let the market at that point sort it out. But it's not great when everybody's doing the same thing, especially if the same thing is these bets, these jackpot bets that have such a high effective take. I like the idea of creativity that goes away from that trend and maybe comes up with some stuff that's a little bit more horse player friendly. So we applaud them for doing that with the golden hour bet. And hopefully more bets like the Stronach 5. We'll see what they handled in the end. It looked like they were going to do, I think they did pretty well given, from the last flash I saw, it looked like they did all right given the fact that we've got so much competition today for that wager. Anyway, if you're interested in the Stronach 5, we'll do a whole nother podcast about it next week, and we hope that if you're one of the people joining us, you check it out. If you go to In the Money Podcast over at iTunes, you'll find us. InTheMoneyPodcast.com is our homepage, and you can find links to all the shows there as well. Matt Bernier Show, clearly one of the highlights. Matt doing a fantastic job early week, and especially over the last couple months, not just talking about the current events in racing, but also doing some really cool evergreen content. Matt, I hope you keep doing that.
Yeah, I mean, and I think it's, look, these past few months, you've had to get a little bit more creative than just having the stakes races and things like that I can just chop up and go over trips and things like that. You got to get a little bit more sort of outside the box, and you brought it up, and it's been something that I think everyone is talked about, the idea of there's always going to be a space for evergreen kind of content, and whether it's silly little challenges or it's my opinion of the best Derby fields or, any of that kind of stuff. It's only good if there's interaction and sort of feedback from viewers and listeners and getting opinions and having people say either I agree 100% or you should, jump off a cliff or, somewhere in between. That's, if you can just sort of stimulate that, I think that's the best kind of content that there is. You don't want everybody agreeing with you because at that point, how interesting is it? So I've tried to do sort of things like that, knowing that and welcoming folks that disagree with certain things. I feel like that's just a healthy sort of way to go about things and make for more interesting content. But yeah, it's been fun and hopefully we'll keep going along. And, at the same time, it will be nice now that it seems like we have a pretty full slate. Woodbine opens up this weekend. I know you did a preview leading into that. And Woodbine is always one of my favorite tracks just in general. Sneaky, it kind of reminiscent to Friday nights at Hollywood when I was first getting into things where, I would be out with friends and I was, 21 or whatever it was. And I'd get back and 10 o'clock on the East Coast was first post. It was amazing. Wednesday night Woodbine has quickly become one of my favorites. I love the 7 o'clock or 7:15 first post on a Wednesday night. It's great. Sure. It may be a shorter card, only 7 races, but like that to me, that's a prime. I wish more tracks were a little bit more aggressive with trying different things. And I get it. Woodbine's got the lights and they can afford to do that. But, you don't have to start at the same time everyone else does. You don't have to start at 1 o'clock. You have to start at noon.
Let's quickly give a thought on this 9th race at Gulfstream. Folks might already be struggling to get their bets in. I came up with Love Nest. Pretty boring. How about you, Matt? Anything more creative?
The 5, Candy Crush 'em. Not a super strong opinion. I don't know about the distance, but the horse beat comparable company as far as speed figures are concerned. That 6,250 claimer most recently. Again, the distance is really going to be the unknown.
They just popped from the gate. Hopefully, if folks were diligently following us and looking to pop those bets in, they were able to get them. I should point out on the show, I did mention Trapezoid is one that I was going to use for the Stronach 5, and I did. But the more I looked at this Love Nest, the more I became convinced it was going to be tricky. Though I will say this: Trapezoid at 7-1 and in a decent spot, not too bad if you listen to the show and went that way.
So what is your philosophy? And this was one of the things that I encountered with this race. You've got one race in particular that I believe 3 or 4 horses exit. And I probably am too rash with this, but for me, it's either I want them all, especially when they're separated by, a skosh. I either want them all or I want none of them. And I chose to go the opposite direction. I mean, is that too aggressive for me to be taking stances like that?
I don't think so. I mean, it just depends on. Here's the thing: you don't want to do that like as an automatic every time thing. But I think it's smart to just think about the field as a whole and what does that form represent, and what are the figures that those horses run represent. And a lot of times it's going to absolutely make sense to go one way or the other. I will, though, sometimes, if there's one horse in that group that we're barely separated who clearly got the worst of it flow-wise, there will be times where I'll use that one and toss the other two. But as a general rule, if horses finished super close up, and unless I have a really pressing reason to chuck one, as you're making a big run here down the center, let's see if we can get. It's going to be you or me. Oh, it's you. It's you. I think.
I think
it came 5-9. We'll take another look at it.
Now I will acknowledge if it knocks you out of the Stronach.
No.
I feel bad about it.
No. I'm okay. I'm okay.
Okay. If you're all right, then I'm okay. I feel I don't have a problem with that.
You can root if it's if I'm ever in a situation where it's like tense and I need I might say to somebody
sit it out.
Like I don't mind if you hit it, but I probably don't want to hear if like we were in my area at Saratoga or something. I might say please don't root don't root against American Pharaoh. Might be something I would have said for how live we were. To that one. So.
I went back and watched that Travers the other day I honestly don't even know what the reason was, but I guess first in my head, look, Frosted did take the race to him. I thought the fractions were faster than what I saw posted. Now, again, it's been years. I don't remember how the track was playing or anything like that. Was it, on the slower side, faster side? I think it was only like 47 and change for a half mile. I expected it to be like 45 and 446, but my memory is clearly.
But the internal fractions, it was the internals there. It wasn't. Okay. It's that funny phenomenon that my buddy Jake Jacobs from RacingFlow.com talks about, where all for example, like all 47s aren't created equal. Sometimes if it goes 24-23, that 47 can favor the front runners, and if it goes 23-24, it can be the other way around. It was one of those weird things where the numbers just got a little.
Well, and you're right, because if I remember correctly, the 3/4 time was close to. It was 10 and change, and I think that was the point when Frosted really started breathing down his neck.
They hotted up and
like you say, for him to only be defeated by a length and a quarter. I mean, that was still a yeoman's effort. That was a big race from him. And Keen Ice is Keen Ice, buddy. I mean, he has a place in history no matter where you landed on him. He has his place in history.
I will never forget. And I hope do I have time to tell the story? Yes, I do.
Yeah. What do we got?
That morning. A friend saying to me, so we're going to beat this horse or what? Meaning Pharaoh. And I remember saying, I'm going to take 90% of my play and it's going through, it's single through Pharaoh. But anytime a horse is going to be bet like this, I'm going to take 10% and, take that and play it for a meltdown in the pick 4. Like I thought I'd hedge in the pick 4. And then we got to the race and I don't know, I think I'd been like exactly right about the first 2 legs. And it was one of those things where I was just feeling like completely invincible. And I was like, what the heck with it? I'm going to go, I'll play the pick 4. I'm going to go back and single Pharaoh again.
And there it was. You know what? I felt it was one of those things where I went into the day, we had an NBC show and I said, there's just a feeling he's going to lose today. And everybody was like, no, stop. You don't want that. And I go, I don't know what I do or don't want, but if the horse I pick against him wins, I'm going to be happy. I know that. And I was all in on my son, Texas Red. And because he had defeated Frosted in the Jim Dandy. It was a great race, but he got the better of him. And he just came up empty. And really, that was kind of it for Texas Red. I believe they tried to get him back to the races at one point. I'm not sure he ran again.
I'll look that up.
If he did, might have been one more time. But, he's going to be one of those horses I'll always look back on, not because of necessarily the happiness that he brought me, but he clearly was a bit of an ouchie type. And you always wonder what could have been had their feet held up, had they not had little nagging injuries that always kind of kept them off the track on a more consistent basis,
Now, was Texas Red, the Travers was his last start. If I'm not mistaken, he was one of the horses that put you up into the money at the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge the year that you ran 5th or 7th or whatever it was in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. Am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah, he was the opinion for me of the weekend, and I said he was not only was he gonna win the Juvenile, but he was going to win a classic race as a 3-year-old, and maybe a little ambitious, a little overzealous, but he ended up when I just remember watching that race. I was we were still with the form and DRF Live was going on, but I happened to be off that, and I wasn't on NBC. That was just a race off for me. And I remember watching Kent Desormeaux with this big run from the back, and I said, just whatever you do, don't get stopped. because the race is falling apart. And whenever he just looped the field, and then he actually split one horse and then tipped out to the outside and went on with it. Yeah, I mean, that was the big one to get me into a good position. And then, some people, I feel like with live money, well, look, any contest, you just want to win, point blank. But I'll put my ego aside in a cash contest. And I don't have a problem saying this. The reason, what got me into first leading into the Breeders' Cup Mile was I played 3 horses to win $1,000 each in the sprint and work all week 1 at 19-1. I thought he was an overlay. I just played 3 horses that I thought were overlaid prices. He ended up winning, put me to the top. So was my opinion right? No, not really. But I was playing the board. And I think that's a valuable insight or a piece that if you've never played in a live money contest, don't let your ego get in the way.
I think that's very good advice. And I think in general, it can be very hard, especially when you're in the business of giving out picks on podcasts and things, to have the ability to back off being selection. We have to be selection oriented. I can't go on. It's not interesting radio to give out 6 horses and say, play them all if they're these prices. Sure. But when it comes to actually betting your money, whether it's a contest or every day at the windows, there is absolutely no shame. The opposite. It's what you if you don't play the board, you're going to be in really bad shape. And you did a great job that day, and you got crazy prices. Work all week was a crazy price, and I mean, how did we get 14-1 on Texas Red? It was
and that was amazing. I just remember because I had him to win, and I think I said it with Jonathan the week that you were on with Sky. It's my crowning achievement from a public handicapping standpoint in the racing form that year, cold superfecta for that race. Texas Red, Carpe Diem, Upstart, The Great War. Done. That was it. That's a walk-off.
What'd that come back?
It came back a healthy chunk, let's put it that way. The only thing I do know is, though, I didn't play it. I could only play tries because I was playing in the contest.
Right.
And the BCBC superfectas are off limits. So, I hit the trifecta and hit the exacta, and I had, I think, 1,000 to win on Texas Red. And really, that's, if you're new to that whole kind of live money sort of setup, you don't need to totally reinvent the wheel. I mean, you can attest to this, covering contests as long as you have. So many of these BCBCs are won in the last race with just a big win bet. I mean, it's not like we're getting crazy. And you're going to get those instances with somebody like the Hammer, who ends up taking all the cash and prizes at Keeneland because he bets a giant exacta. But I mean,
sometimes it's a giant win bet with him too. Keeping it simple is not a bad idea. Now, with that day, Matt, you were playing at least in part for charity. Want to just remind folks we're here for charity as well. Yep. And the money from the rake gets donated, but you can also go to the websites of these places and donate directly. The TAA, Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance, tbaftercare.com. I believe that's their URL. You can donate there. Also, the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation, you can donate through trfinc.org/players. You can check out our new For Charity t-shirt. We had Kurt Rossner on talking about the I won, so they won charity t-shirt that's there. There's a direct link on our page, and who knows, Matt, we might have some people wanting to make donations because you said you were cold, but you've just given out 2 nice prize winners in a row.
We're trying to make a little bit of a rally here at the end, and then if somebody just boxed up our horses in that Belmont race, I know what the numbers came back. Let's see what the exacta actually paid. $2 exacta, $92, $93. Nothing wrong with that. Yeah. So like you say, if you can do it, go right ahead, please fire away and make those donations. And that was what made that year so fun for me, was it was all donated to TAA. And it was just, honestly, it was actually probably more nerve wracking than if it was just my own cash, where at the very end, I was like, how much should I be betting? Because I don't want to just waste away all this money that we've just picked up for charity,
That's fantastic. I remember, got a great note from Peter Rotundo I'm going to read, and then we got to get to Belmont. But I do remember you having a thank you note at your desk at the place with the letters from the TAA.
It was awesome.
I thought that was all class.
It was awesome.
And Peter mentions that with today's rake, this doesn't even count all the donations that have come in. But from the contest alone, since the start of Horseplayers Happy Hour, we're over $5,000 donated to charity. That's not nothing.
Hey, and especially and I can only speak for myself, and I feel like you guys probably feel in a similar way. This has been just a nice outlet in the midst of a really tough time. And if it helps people as far as just kind of forgetting about life for a little bit, and it's a Friday afternoon, have a cocktail, play some horses, but also it's all going to a better situation and kind of, I said it last week, I think the idea of there are great horsemen and women in the business, there are great executives, there are great media people. At its core, if there's not a horse, there's no horse racing. So make sure you take care of them when their job is done on the track. And it just, it's the constant sort of ecosystem. Make sure they're taken care of so we can keep playing.
Let's talk about this 7th race at Belmont. I got a price here. Why don't you kick us off, though, Matt? What did you come up with? So,
this is I don't want to say it's a stab because the pedigree isn't spectacular, but I went with the 11, the important one in here. First time for Steve Asmussen, first time on turf. And, you look at the pedigree, Majestic City, he was actually a really nice synthetic horse, but from a turf standpoint, he was 0 for 5. So far, his progeny haven't been spectacular on grass. There's not much to speak of on the bottom side of things, but I just thought he could work at a really good trip. He proved in his debut he doesn't need the lead in order to win. I expect him to be forwardly placed here throughout. And again, that guy Rosario, he happened to pop up here as the scheduled rider. So he was 10-1 on the line. He's now 9-2. And to be honest with you, if he wins, I got a puncher's chance to get into this thing for tomorrow afternoon. So I'm on the 11.
All right, that's very cool. And this is another instance where being bet down, I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. I was going to get a little crazy here. This is a bit of a speed figure play, and it doesn't exactly apply because the races I'm looking back at were turf routes, and this is a turf sprint. But Amos, the 3 at 14-1, has some good back turf numbers. And Mike Maselli is a trainer who, especially if you filter for turf, but very, very sneaky good. I think he's even got a flat bet profit with his turf runners over like the last 5 years. So this is somebody I trust. This number could keep drifting up. It could end up being 20-1. And I just can't ignore a horse that fits on figures who's this kind of price for a barn that I respect. It's a little goofy. This is a horse that could run, a lot of times I'll pick a horse and I'll be disappointed if they don't at least fire. This is one that could run last, and it wouldn't be absolutely shocking. The last race doesn't really fit figure-wise, but on the body of work, I think Amos has a chance at a very big number.
You brought up the sort of ROI for someone like Mike Maselli. Not going through and doing anything deeper than just what you get in the raw form, the raw dope. His turf sprinters were not even a positive ROI. You're talking about 100% on top of whatever your intro would be. 404 ROI. We're not talking about little, a small marginal victory. We're talking about exponential increase. So again, at a price, especially in a race like this, where, let's call a spade. These are nice fillies and mares. There are nice state bred runners. I don't think there are any superstars in here.
It's not one you want to get stuck into the favorite at a short price, in my opinion.
Exactly, right. And I think it's just, I feel like too many people, I shouldn't say that. Again, generalization. There are a number of people that are afraid of being wrong in a spot like this and just taking a shot on a horse that maybe makes a little bit of sense on paper, or you need to make a creative argument for. To me, these are the opportunities to do so. And if the favorite wins, the favorite wins. They're going to win 35% of the time, so don't feel bad about it.
They're going to the post for this 3rd at Santa Anita, which who knows which one of these 2 races is going to be our last race, right?
This is it. This is our final double right here.
So I'm boring at Santa. I'm on the favorite. It's a horse in the 3, Justin's Quest, who has the best numbers early and overall and is an improving type. Where did you land? What do you need for your contest action?
32. I didn't get cute. I just felt like Justin's Quest, if you believe some of the speed figures, could be forwardly placed. You need to be forwardly placed at Santa Anita on the main track. And, getting some class relief. And outside of the 2, I don't know how good the field actually is, if we're being honest. So I've chalked out in here as well.
All right, so there you go. We've got we're on the same horse, I think, for the first time today. Hopefully that's a good sign. And hopefully, where are you exactly? What do you? They're about to go at Belmont, and they're going to go at the exact same time. That's a bummer.
Yeah, I'll try to talk through it. I'm in 19th. I'm at 41.90, and the bubble is 57.
Okay.
So I need the 11 at Belmont to have any chance. So it's not a done deal by any stretch, but and even having said that, there's 2 people ahead of me with the 11. So I probably need both. I got to hit both of them to have a realistic chance to get in, I think. But I really don't think that's out of the question of happening. So
no, quick fire double could happen. They are off at Santa Anita, and we are going to have some competition for the lead here in the form of the 5. But we've got a nice position going forward with Justin's Quest, and looks like we're going to sit and try to flop outside of this Taco Waco. We may be in a little bit of a tricky spot here, though. We're going to have to find position again.
Yeah, and that's the difficult thing. Once you, and by the way, they're off at Belmont Park. If you could, I would have loved it if Flavien, and I think he probably tried to, but it's a difficult thing to ask a horse to kind of, make that many moves. If he could have procured the position that the 6 has right now,
yes,
where if you could have gotten into the 2-path split horses, not been shuffled back, now I think he's going to need to be miles the best to realistically have a chance in here. Despite the fact that we were just saying that I don't think this is a loaded group. I think he's going to need to be much best in here at even money. Meanwhile, at Belmont, 22 flat for the open quarter. I think the turf has been playing quite speedy based on some of the times that we've seen. I'm coming from last. I don't have any expectations here. We'll see what happens in these 2 races.
It is amazing as we turn for home. The 3, Justin's Quest, is still has every chance in this spot, just based on how much horse Pratt appears to have under him, and he's going to play his hand late.
Oh, the 11 is rolling at Belmont. The 11's rolling at Belmont.
Get up!
The 11's rolling at Belmont. I don't think he's going to get there, though.
Get your nose up! Get your nose up! Got it!
The 11 gets there. The 3 is trying to roll up the wood at Santa Anita.
Come on up the wood with this 3.
There's
Come on up the wood with this 3.
There's the cold
double. Come on
double.
up the wood with this 3. Boom.
There's the cold double. The wrap things up. There's the cold double.
Very good work.
I'll tell you what.
Let's see if it's enough. We got to make sure you're not blocked. It's not over. And
no.
What are you going to get? What are you going to get for place prices? What ran second at Belmont?
The 7, I think, was a big number. I could be wrong. The 7 was 5-1. So, but I ticked up to 6-1 in that spot. I'll tell you what. For a first time, this horse kicked. They went fast. They went 44 and change for the opening half, but the horse kicked. I mean, for a first time turf runner, for Steve Asmussen, who Steve Asmussen, but this isn't necessarily a strength of his. Over the past handful of years, first time in the new barn, going over to the turf, especially sprinting. This was, especially also with the running style. I expected the horse to be forwardly placed, to be rallying from dead last. That was a big effort. And then, we've talked about the idea of some of these lower level horses, needing things to go their way. Hey, let's give Justin's Quest some credit here. I mean, for a lower level horse to not only to lose the position that he did, but to rally as gamely as he did down on the rail, that was an impressive effort for a horse at that level.
It was a great job from Pratt, really. He never panicked, even though he was in the bad spot. He just settled. He knew he had a ton of horse, and he waited for the hole to go through. And, they say that sometimes when jockeys are riding at the top of the game, they transfer the confidence to the horse. That's almost what it looked like to me with the hole that he hit and then grinding it out through the lane. That was a very nice performance by Pratt and by that runner.
Especially with the way that the 2-turn races at Santa Anita, and it feels, I sound like a broken record. I talk about it all the time, but it's true. I mean, if you go through and look, and it doesn't even really matter if it's a mile and a 16th, a mile, if you're not relatively close to the pace, you are just so far up against it. I think more so than I would say borderline any other track in the United States. Santa Anita, you need to be reasonably close to have any chance. And for a horse like that to overcome that, to come from 2 or 3 lengths off of it, down in behind horses, all in all, that was a pretty good effort. The drop in class certainly helped his cause, but again, I think you need to have realistic expectations based on the level that you're dealing with. So we can sit here and wax poetic about this race. The horse is probably going to earn a 63 buyer or something along those lines. But given the relative level, I thought that was a very gutsy effort.
They like to compete at all levels. You'll see lower level horses. I mean, well below that level, still, you can see they have the heart to compete. They're bred. They're bred to do this. So it looks like you're going to get 280, 420 and 280. Okay. So that's a nice, those could be really important dollars. We're still waiting to see what happens with these prices at Belmont.
So
that have a 5-1 second. That's good.
I should be okay. I mean, I'm looking at the bubble right now. Before Santa Anita goes official, or excuse me, before Belmont goes official, I'm $10 out, and I'll have at least 20 and change coming back.
Yeah, that should be
okay.
You should be clear. And what's the prize for that one?
So this was our qualifier here. That's us. This is to get into to tomorrow's event. The one that I'm dealing with as Laurel's getting ready to go to the gate. This other one that I'm playing in is trying to get into tomorrow's Santa Anita Derby challenge. It's a $3,000 buy-in. So,
and how are you looking there?
I don't know if it's gone official yet at Belmont. Maybe it has. Yes, it has gone. There we are. Never bad to see the name up on the leaderboard.
Very, very good. You've had good luck playing in these things. Mark Wilgard ends up winning the whole thing with 92. Lawrence Moyes was there most of the day, stays there 91.30. Kevin Dugan 79.20. Harlan Butleski 77.40. William Arts 76.60. Matt Bernier, is it? 71.20.
You want to throw a little flair on there?
Bev Hendry, 69.60. Steve Wolfson Sr. makes it as well, 68.50. David Santoni, 63.70. Stefan Stojkovic, 63.50. And David Burke with 62.60. Those are the 11 who will go on to play tomorrow. Now, I want to see about your other contest. Does it have more legs, or is it?
Yeah.
wrapped?
So we were only halfway home in the other one, actually.
Gotcha.
Laurel 8th, I think, is going off right now. 8 or 9. If it's 9, it's 8.
It's 8 because of the drag on the Stronach 5 today.
So there's still 5 races to go in the other one, and the top 6 get in. And 6th right now is 65.60, and I'm in 26th at 43.60. So there's a long way to go here. It could go well, it could go poorly, but at least we're in with a puncher's chance halfway through.
Well, great picking today, Matt. That was super fun, getting a chance to hang out once again. And we'll start to wrap things up here by thanking our friends at Horseplayers, at the Breeders' Cup, especially Peter Rotundo, for getting these things teed up and being a real high point of the broadcasting week for the last couple of months. Producer Craig's been doing a great job going above and beyond as well. We appreciate the extra work he put in this week, too, on getting the Carter sorted out. To our charities, Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance and the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation. Seek them out. Make donations. They're doing such important work to make this game go, and they can't do it without your help, especially if you enjoy our content. If you get to back a winner once in a while that we gave you, say thank you by donating to them and keeping that engine moving. Most of all, thanks to everybody who watches, who listens, who interacts. Matt was talking before about the interactions he has with folks from his show. Check that stuff out. Subscribe, rate, do all that super helpful stuff. That's going to do it. This show's been a production of In the Money Media and the Breeders' Cup. We will see you next week.
PTF, hang on. We will be back in 2 weeks.
Oh, you're right. Thank you, Matt. You saved me. We're off next week. We've got a wedding to go to. So do something. Play the Stronach 5 without us. Get involved on horseplayers.com, but you will not see us. You will see us in 2 weeks, however. That's really going to do it. May you win all your photos.